Out of the swamp and into the bunker, we have our Congressman Pat Fallon, a conservative from the 4th Congressional District, here for some straight talk, Rockwall County. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is the Bunker Bob Show. Yes, and it is always great to have our friend, the great conservative Congressman Pat Fallon. Congressman, thank you so much for being here today. You know, it was, let's get some house cleaning over with first, the most important thing first, and that obviously is the Texas Aggies won this weekend, and that of course, I know that's most important to you. But then there was a kid from South Bend who broke his finger and decided, he was a quarterback, decided to throw the game-winning touchdown in the Notre Dame game. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that.
How about them Irish?
Yeah, he was like a hockey player. Broke his finger and said, "Just fix it. I got to go win this game," and they did. But I'm losing years with Notre Dame winning by these narrow margins.
Oh. Yeah.
Was it 3 points last week?
Think so, yeah.
In Florida State?
Yeah.
That's well, maybe 3 points both times. Too close to call. Too close for comfort.
But your coach would have said it's a win.
He said, "Yes, sir. It's W. At the end of the day, it's W. I got to work for it for here."
Oh my goodness! Well, it was obviously a somber weekend as well of remembrance. 20 years since 9/11. How did you remember 9/11?
You know, I wanted to do some meaningful posts on social media because you can touch so many people in that regard. And there was a beautiful picture I came up.
Yes, I actually saw it. Yeah,
with the Twin Towers and the light setting behind it, the sun, and it formed a cross. It was beautiful. And just to remember that there were 2,977 souls that lost their lives due to this, this evil, and to never forget, and to honor them by making sure it doesn't happen again. And then I shared the transcript of Todd Beamer.
Yes, that was powerful.
People need to read that.
That was powerful.
If you can go to Fallon for Texas on Facebook and just scroll down a couple of posts, it'll be there. And you get tissue.
It's chilling.
It is chilling. And just the bravery, too, because Todd Beamer realized at some point in that conversation that his life was over within hours. And they had been talking with other passengers, knowing that, hey, the World Trade Center has been hit, both towers, the Pentagon. And then when that FBI agent came on and said, "I think that you're destined for the White House or the Capitol."
Capitol, yeah.
And they said, "Well, we're not going to let that happen." And knew that they had the slimmest of chances to take over the plane and save it. And that's exactly what happened. They're pretty certain that once the terrorists understood that they were coming to get him, they just dove the plane and it was unrecoverable. Yeah. But they saved thousands of lives and inspired millions.
Yeah, Field of Heroes. That's no question about it. Everyone says that we'll never forget, but I'm of the opinion. Yeah.
I mean, Bob, this is what said. I think it was a Newsmax a couple of days ago, and they asked me, and I didn't really know what the questions were going to be at all. Yeah. And the fella said, "Do you think we're safer now or less safe today than we were 20 years ago?" And I said, "I think there have been pockets of time in those 20 years where we are actually safer because we were cognizant of the threat and we mitigated the threat because we were addressing the threat. And then there were times we forgot. And you can't tell me that when we let 1.5 million folks cross the southern border, we don't know who they are.
Right.
And then we release them into the homeland, that we're safer than we were 20 years ago. We're not.
Yeah.
And then my biggest fear is a dirty bomb. You get some terrorist actors that it's crude, and it doesn't take a lot of technology. It takes the radioactive material, and then if they release that into a city, we could have tens of thousands of people killed, and that scares me.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously the pullout in Afghanistan has been top of mind for a lot of Americans, especially those who have fought in Afghanistan to preserve peace. And now we see just a complete turnaround as far as policy and American policy goes. What kind of effect do you think that's going to have long term, and what can Congress do?
So I think it's very important, thanks for the question, to try to give your listeners and viewers the Reader's Digest version because there's so much. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
In fact,
yeah.
we did an emergency town hall just on Afghanistan.
Okay.
We spoke about this topic and just this topic for 45 minutes, and we had plenty of content for it. So in a nutshell, here's the difference. Nobody knows for sure how the withdrawal would have played out if President Trump had served another term. But there are indicators that say it would have played out very differently.
Very differently.
So I have personally spoken with, in the last month, John Ratcliffe.
Yes.
2-hour phone call with John, just me and him.
Okay.
Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of Defense, and the current Secretary of Defense, State, Joint Chiefs, and Director of National Intelligence. The National Security Advisor, and the Homeland Security Director. They were all in a room and they briefed us. And they fielded questions from angry Republicans and some very angry Democrats. Now, those angry Democrats, when they go out in public, kind of sing a slightly different tune.
Now, this is members of Congress.
Yeah,
Okay.
members of Congress. So this is the best that I can ascertain because I want to be fair.
Right.
Okay. Because President Trump wanted to pull out because we're spending too much treasure in Afghanistan. But he had a conditions-based withdrawal plan. So he said to the Taliban, if you do the following, cut all your ties with al-Qaeda, respect the provincial capitals, honor the Afghani government roadblocks, work with the Afghani government on a power-sharing agreement, and do not harm U.S. troops. If you do those 5 things, we're going to draw down. And we did, from 15,000 eventually to 2,500 under President Trump's watch. Now, Mike Pompeo was saying, they probed. I mean, there was a pattern that went. The Taliban, the best English they understand is a gun to the head.
Absolutely.
They understand strength, they understand weakness.
Right.
So they would see, what if we violate the agreement? What will happen? Well, we punched them in the teeth and murdered them by the bushel. We had the Afghan army and some of our troops on the ground, but mostly the Afghans. And then we provided strong air cover, and then we murdered the Taliban by the bushel. Then they pulled back, and then we back-channeled, and they said, oh, we're sorry. And then there was a cycle that would occur. So, but when the biggest mistake Biden made was time certain. We had a projected withdrawal under Trump. And if these conditions occurred, fine. And then when they said time certain May 1st, and then August 31st, because he wanted to be out of there symbolically by September 11th, people die when you make stupid, silly, symbolic decisions like this. The fighting in Afghanistan is always seasonal. It begins because it's an unforgiving climate. It begins in the spring and ends in the fall. They don't fight in the winter en masse because they can't. They're not equipped to do so. Most of the Taliban go to Pakistan. So if that's indeed the case, and the conditions were not being met, because if the conditions were being met, we could leave and the Afghan government would still be in power. They weren't being met. So once they gave them that time certain, they violated all of the 5, save not harming American troops, because they knew that, but nobody can cover that up.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you know that you're going to leave for sure, you leave in December or January when you at least give that Afghan government a fighting chance to believe in themselves and gain the confidence of the people for 4 or 5 months. Now, truth be told, what we know now, hindsight being 2020, they probably would have fallen anyway, but it would have been May or June or July of next year, and they would have actually had a chance of maybe success. But when you leave in the middle of the summer, they stood no chance. So, real quick. John Ratcliffe sitting in the room with President Trump.
Yeah.
And because I asked him, I said, what was your assessment? What was the intel assessment? And he said, we'd go around the room, the president would ask us, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And everybody was at the same mindset. From the intel and what we hear on the ground, the Afghan government won't last. If conditions are not met, 2 weeks, maybe a month. And then President Trump would say, I give him 2 days, John, 2 days. Okay?
Yeah.
They have to meet the conditions. So to say that this was an intelligence failure, and the intelligence committee was surprised by this, is just a bull-faced lie.
Right.
John, during his transition, when he was briefing the new DNI, he told her that. So she knew. So for her to now try to cover for the administration and say, we didn't know, we were shocked, it's just a bull-faced lie.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would President Trump have left $85 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan? Well, again, we have an indicator. In Syria, when we pulled our special forces out, he said to Commander-in-Chief, I don't want anything left behind. And they were so excited when they reported to the president, we left nothing behind, just some tents and some tent poles. Yeah. He got angry. He was furious.
Over the
he
tents
said,
and tent poles.
Nothing. He literally meant everything out. So he talked to John, and again, I could just hear him say, John, I don't care styrofoam cooler. Okay? If styrofoam cooler, if it's got an American flag on it, I want it out of there. So he's right there, Mr. President. Right
you know, you're. I got to tell you, your Trump is very Lou Holtz-ish. I'm just going to tell you.
John, Bob, Lou Holtz, great American. Good friend of mine. Okay.
Greatest president ever.
Thank you.
Yes.
So he would say that to John Ratcliffe. And then he would go on to 15 or 18 other things.
Yeah.
And he looked back at John and go, styrofoam cooler. Okay? If it has an American flag on it, he wants it out of there. So you can't tell me that man would have sat idly by and let $85 billion worth of equipment there when he was serious about the tent poles in Syria.
Yeah.
So what they needed to do is have a plan in place that says, listen, if it goes south and the Afghanis are going to fall and Taliban's going to take over, we either get that equipment out and the stuff we can't get out, we blow up. You destroy. A $45 M67 grenade in a Black Hawk, no more $20 million helicopter. So these are indicators that it would have went very differently. And they didn't have the plan. Then it was really odd with the evacuation of the Americans. So in that classified briefing we had, I can talk about this small portion of it because it happened.
Okay.
But 3 days before our troops were lost, they told us in that briefing that I would never have talked about unless it had actually happened.
Okay.
They said there's a highly credible threat that there will be a suicide attack from ISIS-K at one of the gates in the Kabul airport. That's exactly what happened. So they had I think it was probably signal intercepts. That might be my guess. They didn't tell us that. It was just a guess. So we knew it was coming, and we didn't take, obviously, effective measures because the Taliban would have given us all of Kabul before the withdrawal. They only had 6,000 fighters in there, and we said no. So this is another thing that people need to understand. You have Bagram's 25 miles outside of Kabul.
Okay.
Then you had Kabul airport, and you had the embassy. So what Biden and his folks are telling people, again, they're lying because you have to understand the context. They're saying, our military told us that we couldn't hold Bagram, so we had to leave. No, your military told you they could hold it with 2,500 troops. You backed the State Department and said 600 is the max. And then the military came back and said, well, with 600 troops, we can't hold the three. Bagram, the Kabul airport, and the embassy.
Yeah.
Big difference. Now, Milley, the Joint Chiefs, he was upset when Trump wanted to go from 4,500 troops to 2,500. He had violent pushback. But Trump stood firm, and then his orders are, okay, I'll carry out your policy. He didn't want to do that. 2,500 troops, President Trump had stability, no American lives lost in 18 months.
Right, wow.
Then Biden had to triple the number, almost triple it to 7,000, 7,500. Hard to say because they wouldn't give us the figures.
Yeah.
And then we had chaos. So now you're trying to tell me that Milley, who didn't want to go from 45 to 25, suddenly was perfectly fine with going from 2,500 to 600? It's a lie. And 5,000 bad guy prisoners were then released because when we lost the Bagram. That is pretty much the worst possible way to leave Afghanistan is what happened.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of it, and you can see why.
So when you, as a member of Congress, how many intelligence briefings are you involved in?
So I'm on the Armed Services Committee.
Okay.
And the Military Personnel and Cyber, and I'm on the Oversight Committee.
Okay.
Both of which have jurisdiction, they're committees of jurisdiction over Afghanistan, because oversight is so broad.
Okay.
And then, with Armed Services, this is dealing with the military. So this one, there was open to all members of Congress. There was a classified briefing. And then we as HASC members get classified briefings as well.
How often does that happen?
It's okay. Armed Services, I would say, once every 2 months.
Okay.
And then as needed, as dictated by things. Now, I want to get on the Intel Committee. There's no freshman on the Intel Committee. That's a kind of, you have to prove yourself and, be senior. But that would be I think next Congress, I'd like to be on Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, and then eventually Intel. But I don't think that'll happen even next Congress. It'll be a little bit to get there.
Okay. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit and talk. You had mentioned about the open borders at Mexico, and so we've got all of these people coming in, and they're not being tested for COVID. They're not being required to wear masks. But let's talk about the mask mandate or the vaccine mandate. What can Congress do to stop this? Obviously, this is not something you support. What can Congress do to prevent?
I know, Bob. Where's your mask? Where's your mask? Okay. Listen. everything is interrelated. And so you've got a president that claims that COVID is a threat.
Right.
Clear and present danger to the United States and his administration and the Democratic Party. So they're being, okay. So then they say it's such a threat that we can't allow any Canadians, even if they're vaccinated, can prove they're vaccinated, to come into the country, which I think is absurd. And
that is absurd.
It's not following the science.
No.
And it's hurting our commerce and our tourist industry. Also, oh my goodness, if you're from Europe, you can't come either. Asia, you can't come. Even though those are countries that have high vaccination rates and we can prove it. And hell, I'm all for taking a COVID test too. That's fine. Okay. But they're perfectly okay with letting 1.5 million people cross the southern border. We don't know who they are.
Right.
We do know that they're from 70 different countries. And we're not testing them. If we do test them and they test positive, we're releasing again into the American homeland anyway.
Right.
So that is completely inconsistent. I have begged anybody left of center to try to explain to me how you can defend that policy. Nobody can.
Right.
Nobody has yet, because they can't. They just say, well, Trump sucks, which is their answer to pretty much everything. Oh, yeah, you? Well, Trump sucks. Okay. Well, President Trump wasn't letting 1.5 million people. He turned the flood to a trickle. There was always people sneaking across because it's a 1,500-mile roughly border. But I want it to be a trickle, not a flood. And now it's a flood again. And by the way, it's getting worse every month.
Yeah.
In February, and Bob, in February, March, there was a lot of national attention. Well, it hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. They just, national media don't want to talk about it because it hurts its poll numbers.
Absolutely.
So, Max, vaccine mandate, to your question.
Yep.
I just needed to point out the liberal hypocrisy.
No, there's a lot of it.
I tell everybody, I'm looking at the camera now, beg people to get vaccinated. I had COVID in February. It almost killed me. It was a horrible experience, and I was never sicker in my life. Survived it, so I have...
Were you vaccinated when you got it?
No.
Okay.
And I would have been, but I wasn't going to get vaccinated before everybody else could.
Okay, I see.
So they said in January, members of Congress, you can get vaccinated. I said, absolutely not. Not until everybody, any one of my constituents, kind of like the captain should be the last person off the ship.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not going to be the first person off. So I didn't, and almost paid for it dearly.
Wow.
But anyhow, survived it. And then I did get vaccinated. I didn't need to scientifically because I had so many antibodies, but we were going to Israel in August, and the nation state of Israel required it.
Okay.
So I, by choice, even though it was kind of coerced, and I want to go to Israel.
Well, if you want to go to Israel, yeah.
I mean, that's a big
Israel's
deal.
right, yeah.
Important ally. So I got vaxxed. So there's two things I know I'm not going to die of: sharks and COVID, because I don't swim in the ocean. I mean, I got so many antibodies now. If I see a lollipop on the sidewalk, I grab that thing. I just eat it. Or if you got going underneath your desk, who's wasting this? So, but nobody can be forced to. This is about liberty and freedom. We should be following liberty and freedom. I want you to, and I'm asking you. And I do think, though, when you mandate it like this, there's going to be less people that get vaccinated. It's counterintuitive.
Absolutely. Well, what can Congress do? What can you do as a member of Congress?
We can file legislation, and we have, and we will, and continue to support and sign on to other pieces as well. But as a practical matter, there are 222 Democrats in the House and 213 Republicans. That legislation is going nowhere. Right. Not to say that I don't want it to sit there and collect us, but that's what's going to happen.
So you don't think there's enough Democrats who kind of see the hypocrisy that's going on and would join you?
This is what Nancy Pelosi does to them too. This is
give us some inside baseball.
So there are 7 districts. When it's 222 to 213, if 5 Democrats vote with all the Republicans, we win the day. And it's never fully filled. There's always somebody of the 435 of us that's gone to jail. Yeah. That's, quit. Who knows? So it's right now, I think there's 4, but eventually it'll be 5. If 5 of it, so there are 7 districts that Democrats represent that President Trump actually carried, that he won. So they're in precarious situations. So when they don't want to vote for some of this crap, like they had enough, they actually stuck together, and we won the day on the abandonment of, gosh, I'm drawing a blank. The eviction moratorium.
Eviction moratorium.
Right.
Okay.
We wanted to end the moratorium on evictions because if you're not paying your rent, who the hell is the federal government to tell a private business, private homeowner or landowner that you have to have this person in your property and they're not paying you? Right. It's absurd. Anyhow, it is. Be that as it may. But there were enough of them that hung together and we won, so they couldn't extend it. But they go up to him and they say, oh, you think this is a tough boat back home? You know what's even tougher back home? Not having any money. she'll cut them off wholly. And the other issue that they have in the Democratic Party is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has a ton of power because they're all scared of their left flank. In a Democratic primary. You got like somebody like Richie Neal, who's the chairman of Ways and Means and is more of a traditional left of center Democrat. He's from Western Massachusetts.
Okay.
Well, AOC recruited somebody to run against him. The gay mayor of Holyoke, who's a radical progressive, wears his sexuality on his sleeve like it defines you. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. It's who you are, not what you are.
Right.
But he's like this. Vote for me because I'm gay.
Right.
Vote for me because I'm going to, take more from the rich.
Right.
All these bad reasons to vote for him. So,
right.
Anyway, he challenged him, and Richie's been in there forever. And it was 50s to 40s. So Richie Neal won, and I bet you that guy's probably going to run against him again. Same thing with Henry Cuellar, who's a great Democrat, about as good as you're going to get from a Democrat.
Yeah.
And he's a real nice guy, too. And he stood up to this administration repeatedly. AOC recruited somebody, an Azatlan top gal.
Right. But you don't see that a way to stop the president from instituting this.
I do judicially.
Okay.
I think that it's got to hit the Supreme Court. We got to expedite it, get it up there. It's patently unconstitutional.
It is, no question.
No question. So it should be a 9-0. It probably will be 6-3, maybe 5-4. I would think at least 6-3.
I think it's 5-4. Yeah, but you're right.
It's because we kind of more have a 5.5, 3.5.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, situation.
Yeah, so talking one of the things that's been hot on social media is the 9/11 memorial. Biden, Obama, Clinton, they were walking along, and Biden goes into a crowd basically and takes his mask down and talks to someone, then kisses, gives a kiss after he shakes their hand. So it's those types of things, and honestly, at first I really, because my father's about to turn 90. And so I see him slowing down. And so I kind of look at Joe Biden sometime and I go, man, it's kind of cringeworthy. But now I'm just, it's no longer cringeworthy. I don't see, the only thing, I'll tell you, there's one thing that I'm jealous of you about, and that is that you know Mark Levin. And one of the things that he's been talking about lately is really focused on impeachment of the president. That is he really worthy to serve, and is he able? So, what do you think about impeaching Biden? And
the problem is we get Harris, which is probably going to be worse. But be that
you don't think Harris is running the country right now?
I don't know who it is, but it isn't Biden, and I don't think it's Harris. I think because listen, Biden has got his confidence.
Yeah.
And they're in control.
Okay.
They don't want her. She was a means to an end. She checked 2 boxes because they're the what you are party.
Right.
They don't care who you are. It's
absolutely.
She was black, part Asian, and female.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. No qualifications whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, she had the qualification of being a mistress. So
I wasn't going to go there, but yes.
She did. I mean, this is straight talk with Bunker Bob.
That's exactly right. Come on now.
And Montel Williams, she's very experienced at being mistress.
Yes.
But not really experienced at governance.
Right.
At all. And it worked for her. She's the vice president. So, and she's a heartbeat away from the presidency. So I asked unnamed people in the intelligence community who used to serve and have lots of contacts. I said, what are you hearing? Because I talk to members of Congress that know Joe Biden and have known him for decades. Those folks tell me he is not the same person. I don't know the guy.
Right.
I met him one time, like in 2009, and it was, hey, how are you? That's it. So I can't gauge.
Well, and I was press secretary for a U.S. senator, and he was in our office a lot, and I mean, clearly, very, very different guy, because he was one of the most glad-handing type of politicians that you'd ever see. And I was telling my wife that she was asking, well, why isn't President Bush, in New York? Why is he in Shanksville? And I basically said, I think if Biden was his old self, Bush would have been there, because he's kind of the old traditional kind of politician, glad-handing, you disagree on the floor, but behind closed doors. Yeah. It's kind of the Scalia-Ginsburg type of relationship. But yeah, he's completely lost all of his faculties, in my opinion. So it's kind of scary.
I think his brain's dying.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure his wife and the confidants that he has around them want to run the country for as long as they can.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly who's pulling strings, because as soon as he's gone, and it's probably going to be a 25th Amendment situation if he doesn't resign.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
So anyway, let's start with here. The intel people that I know say that it's less than 10% chance he's going to serve the full term. We're going to know how bad things were later.
Yeah.
Because they're running it now.
Yeah.
It'll all come out because once he's gone, it's not going to matter.
Right.
But, his wife, I'm sure, enjoys being first lady. As
Oh,
soon
absolutely.
as he's out of office, the money train stops.
Yeah.
No one's going to go to her anymore. And his crack pipe son, he's never going to, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Hunter.
Hunter.
Yeah, he
Hunter
hunts,
Biden.
he
Yes.
hunts for the crack pipes.
That's right.
So he's not going to. The Ukraine and Russia and China aren't going to.
Your press secretary is cringing over there. Just so you know, I'm just.
This is straight talking, Bunker Bob.
Come on, I'm okay with it. I love it.
Listen, they're not gonna pay him any more money. The gravy train's over.
Yeah.
So, and we're gonna know at some point. I just don't know when. So how does it unfold when it gets so bad? So this is what I have heard. I can't confirm this because I haven't seen it with my own eyes.
Okay.
But from what I hear, they wanted him to speak about once a week because they amp up his meds.
Yes.
To make him better. Because we see his best days, but we don't see his worst days. We don't know how bad the bad days are.
Yeah.
And it's sad. I mean, anytime somebody goes through degenerative, a brain disorder, it doesn't get better.
No.
It's just it just keeps getting worse, and you can sometimes slow it a little bit with those meds.
Yeah.
But if you're not speaking on 9/11, the anniversary, and you're the president of the United States, you did a pre-taped message.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, come on, folks. So if he does anything, like for instance, in my humble opinion, if they shared American citizens' whereabouts and personal information with the Taliban in Afghanistan, I personally think that's an impeachable offense. And I cannot dictate. I mean, I took an oath. I can't say, but because we're going to get Harris, I'm not going to impeach. No, if you commit an impeachable offense, I think you should be impeached.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
We're waiting on a lot of this stuff. Did he ask the Afghani president? Did he ask Ghani to lie and say, make it out to be better than it is? We don't know these things. We've heard rumors. And Blinken wouldn't answer. He said he needed to answer in a classified setting on some of these matters. So the truth, though, will set you free. And it always tends to boil to the surface. It might take a while.
Yeah.
But it'll get up there.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
But let's just say that we don't get to. Now, we don't have the votes for impeachment now. But if you have a smoking gun, who knows?
Yeah.
You never know. But if it comes to a point where he cannot function anymore, I would think that he would resign, and if he doesn't, then they're going to have to use the 25th Amendment.
Yeah. One of the big issues that has, as a fiscal conservative, every fiscal conservative is concerned about the fact that we're $28 trillion in debt. We're moving to 29. We are running at exponential rate. And the question that I have is, what is Congress doing, and what are you doing to help solve this? I'm going to call it a catastrophe.
Yeah, I think it's catastrophic implications for sure. So I thought it was interesting. We have our National Defense Authorization meeting. So we flew back to Washington, just the members of the Armed Services Committee.
Oh.
Most of us. Some were, cop out, and they do that Skype. But listen, when you got $788 billion worth of American taxpayer money going to secure our national defense, get your butt in the room, I think. So we had the proposed budget was something like 740 something billion. That ended up being maybe 760. But anyhow, we got an additional roughly $30 billion added to make it 788. And that came from the Senate. And so Mike Rogers, ranking member, fought for it, and we agreed that we had the votes for it anyway. So they agreed to that amendment. So that's why it's at 788. But then I heard from our left-wing colleagues that, we've got a deficit here, and this is just adding $30 billion to the deficit.
Wow.
How dare we? The most progressive ones cried the most because they're appealing to their, Democratic primary voters. But then, so when I got a chance to speak and recognized, I get 3 minutes, and I literally went like this. What did I find? Is there fiscal responsibility in this room suddenly? Look at it, was under the desk.
Wow.
It was under the rug the whole time.
Yeah.
I said, we got colleagues in here that just whined about adding $30 billion to the debt, who were perfectly fine with voting for the COVID relief bill when 91% of it didn't have anything to do with COVID relief or mitigating.
Boy, isn't that amazing?
And what's 1.9?
90% of that COVID relief bill did not go to COVID.
1.9 trillion. You know what that is?
Trillion.
1,900 billions. 1,900 billions. Let's build a tower. And you're whining about 28 billion. You weren't concerned about that, but this is what's going to break the bank.
For our nation's defense.
That's a joke. Yeah, thank you. It's a joke. This was socialist wish list garbage. See, there's socialists throwing things at us right now. And this. So come on. And I said, come on. That's ridiculous. And then you want to spend another 3,500 trillion. And then you want to spend another 2,250 trillion on infrastructure. That's now been pared down to 1.2. So, suffice to say, what can we do to stop it? We voted no. Every Republican voted no. We had the votes to stop the 3.5 trillion from even getting out of the House. And then Nancy Pelosi got to work, twisting arms, taking names, and they all buckled. They all buckled. So it passed. But thank God for Joe Manchin from West Virginia. He's voting no. So the whole thing might be dead. Praise Jesus.
Yeah.
That's why D.C.'s not a state, because of Joe Manchin.
For now.
Right.
For now. Well, so we've got a little bit of time. I did want to bring up. So one of the I get email from viewers, and this was one of the viewers' questions about you had been highlighted in the local press about a stock deal that you had made that brought up some ethics issues. What's the deal with that, and what?
Sure. Thank you.
What's the bottom
asking.
line?
Thank you. Okay. Bottom line is I did make one mistake. We're supposed to report somewhere between 30 and 70 days. It's like 30-day report period, but you get a kind of a grace period of 40 days when you buy or sell a stock. I thought it was annual because it had always been annual for me in this Texas legislature. You had to report everything. You just did it on an annual basis, not kind of on a revolving monthly basis. So when I found out about it, I told on myself. And I said, whoa. That's what they never report.
Right, of course not.
He failed to
well, in the paper actually that did the report, I noticed that they did not ask for a statement from you or your office, which demonstrates again a press that is out to get you.
It's a gotcha.
Yeah.
And listen, I went into this knowing back in 2012 when I ran for state rep that it's going to be a gotcha game and 95% of the press is going to be against you. So that's fine. I mean, it's just juiced into the deal. Yep. So there was no excuse. We did get a briefing on it. I didn't hear that part of it. I mean, I was at the briefing and asked several questions about other stuff. It's complicated, the amount of ethics and reporting that we have to go through.
And these are stocks that you purchased before you were in Congress.
I've been buying and selling stock for a very long time.
Right.
So anyway, when I found out, because I actually found out because there was an article written about Dan Crenshaw doing a similar thing and just failing to disclose. Okay. And there's no advantage to disclosing 3 months later. I mean, people are still seeing everything because we did it. So anyway, it's a small fine that you pay and you move forward. But then they take it to another level. And so this is what really infuriates me. They say, he bought Boeing stock as a member of the Armed Services Committee. I was buying Boeing stock and selling it before. I bought it because I thought COVID was largely over before the Delta variant. So I bought the stock at $259 a share. It's currently, I think, at $214. I lost a lot of money on the Boeing stock. Now, when I sell it, I'll make sure to say that to share all of the data with the Business Insider reporter that's trying to claim I made money. I actually lost money.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I'm sure they're going to report it.
Oh, yeah, right. Because it's juicy to say, and it pisses me off, too, when you go, member of Congress, you were insider. If you inside trade, you should go to jail.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what I'm going to do to mitigate this from ever happening again is I'm working on getting we're going to do a blind trust. So somebody else buys and sells the stock. I don't know what's going on at all.
Yeah.
And then I just have to report the top line because they're going to lie constantly about this stuff. And I kind of take it as of honor because if you're becoming effective in Congress as
you're doing something right.
Jim Jordan, how many hit pieces has he had written about him?
Yeah.
You know, because he's effective. And Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise and Jim Banks. I mean, they hate these guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lauren Bobart, up in Colorado. So when they write those hit pieces about you, you got to say, yeah.
Yeah, World War II bomber pilots said, you're over the target when you're taking flak. And
right.
so you're obviously doing something right.
Listen, if they say that I bought some Microsoft stock on May 26th, okay, I immediately optioned it. Now, why they write these articles is because most people don't understand how options and puts work. Okay, when I buy a stock and immediately option it, I've lost control of the stock.
Yeah.
Okay, they said, he might have had insider information on the fact that some Microsoft contract was being canceled.
Yeah.
Okay, nobody on the committee did. The cyber subcommittee, nobody. Why would a backbenching freshman know? And if I did, I wouldn't have done anything. But if you knew that it was a negative thing because it was a $10 billion contract that the Pentagon was canceling. you don't, if you're a nefarious individual and you say, I don't care about ethics, morals, legalities, I'm just out to make as much money as I can. Why would you buy a stock and then immediately lose control of it for 30 days?
Right.
You wouldn't do that.
Right.
You would have bought what's called puts, and then you could have put that to them and you would have probably doubled your money. I bought $250,000 worth of Microsoft stock and optioned it for $5,000. That's 2%. I made a 2% return, but if the stock went down more than that 2%, I would have lost a whole lot of money. I could have been exposed. So I never sold the stock. It was optioned away because when I bought it on May 26th and immediately optioned it, 30 days later, the stock had gone up. So somebody took it from me. It's called, the option. So they took that option. And then it was gone, and I didn't own it anymore. They didn't even announce the cancellation of the contract till July 6th. All this happened before that.
Wow.
So they're trying to say that I might have known, but I didn't know when they were going to announce it, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, after the fact, nobody knew, and the stock went up.
Yeah.
So it's this thing, but when you're explaining you're losing in politics.
No,
so that's
absolutely. And I just want to make a point because, this is something important to a viewer, and I get that. But the thing that I care about is how you vote.
Right.
What are you doing in Congress? And this kind of thing, obviously you want to be up and up. You want to do things honestly. And
Bob, Bob, I want to correct you.
What?
For the last 12 years, I've run for political office, hoping that I would make $5,000 on a stock trade and risk it all.
Yes.
Forget any morals or ethics. Doesn't matter. No, it was that $5,000. That was my 40 pieces of silver. I mean, it's absurd and it's BS.
Absurd.
But you know what the headline said? This is what the headline said to what it should have really said. It was, Congressman dumps stock prior to cancellation of contract. Well, that sounds awful.
Yes.
And they interview somebody from Public Citizen, the far left-wing group that said, it's reasonable to suspect.
Yes.
Oh, really? Did you call the chairman of the committee, the subcommittee? The Democratic, and ask him if he knew? No. You know what I even found out about the cancellation of the contract? When they wrote the article.
Yeah.
When he called me. I'm like, what happened? I had no idea. So I got to play this game now where I do the blind trust.
Yeah.
So then they'll write other hit pieces on me about stuff, but they can't get that anymore. I'm going to take that away from them.
Well, I just think, again, to me, it when I looked at all of the stocks that they were reporting, I was like, man, this guy's kind of dumb. He does things the wrong way. You're supposed to go into Congress poor and come out rich. You're doing it kind of the opposite. So, I can't, no one can hold you that against you.
It's blue chip stocks, and I'm never going to apologize for having money before I came into Congress.
No, of course not.
So
that's what you want, frankly.
This is what they're trying to argue. I'm so apparently nefarious and greedy that $5,000 I'm going to sell my soul for. But I will let Nancy Pelosi fine me my entire salary because I'm refusing to wear a mask on the House floor.
Yeah.
She'll fine me literally the $174,000 I get paid. I'll end up with none of it.
So you're not wearing a mask on the floor in opposition to that's good.
Because we have 95% herd immunity.
Yeah.
We've either had COVID or we're vaxxed. Everybody.
God bless you, man.
So why we have to send a message to the country and the world that we can get past COVID. And when you're all vaxxed like this and there's no danger any longer on the House floor, then let's not wear a mask.
Yeah. Final question.
Yep.
So when
I get passionate about this.
Hey, no, this is good. This is good. But final question. I think that one of the things when you were up to replace Ratcliffe to take his seat, I did not endorse you, and I endorsed someone else. And the only reason I didn't endorse what?
Who'd you endorse?
I endorsed Jim Pruitt. Ironically,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jim Pruitt. Ironically, I endorsed him because I didn't know that he had a young kid. Well, I did not endorse anyone who had young children. That was just a standard. And why is that? Because I've seen Congress and I've seen how it works. It kills families. And so, I pray for you, and I hope that everyone is praying for our congressman because it's hard on the family. How are your sons? How's your wife doing? And what are you doing to kind of really keep your family first?
No, thank you. And that it's very tough. And it's a job that's far better suited for folks that have children that are grown.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
To be honest. And the way I would run it, if I ever get to it in a position of power, is 2 weeks in D.C., then 2 weeks home every month. And then, August they have the recess, and then probably 3 weeks in December home for the holidays. Because we should be at home more, not so much for our families too, but I work for 787,000 people.
Yeah.
They need to hear from me, but more importantly, I need to hear from them. That's why we've had nearly 20 town halls in person town halls, no holds barred. You can ask any question you want.
Yes.
And that's very important.
How those goes, by the way?
Those are great.
Well,
I mean, people are upset. People are very upset.
Yeah.
I actually got heckled by a right wing, somebody to the right of center. It's the first time that's ever happened. Just because he was so upset with the Biden administration. He's like, y'all have to do something. Yeah. Damn it, do it. And while I understand that frustration, because I feel it acutely.
Sure you do. It's
a numbers game right now.
Yeah.
There's more of them than there are of us. Now, come November of 2022, I don't think that'll be the case. But election integrity is incredibly important as well.
Yes.
And that's, we could have
Texas knows that.
Yeah.
We signed our,
and do, we finally got that bill passed.
Yeah.
Like just on election integrity.
Yeah.
And maybe 1 or 2 topics or 3 topics we can really dive down and do a deep dive in. But so I woke up this morning and I had to tell my wife, hey, baby, I'm going to Greenville, then I'm going to Rockwall, then I'm going up to Paris for a fish fry, and I'll be home at 9. And this is at 8 in the morning.
Wow.
She's like, oh, have fun. Okay. But, I get to as many of the boys' games as I can.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah,
how are they doing?
They're good. They're great. They're 15 and 12. They're playing basketball and football right now.
Wow.
So you do that as best you can. And you just, because the country's so important to fight for.
Yeah.
What kind of future do they have?
Yeah.
So they get that part. They want dad home more, and I want to, because you're never going to get this time back.
No, you're not.
And here's something, too, for folks to know. It's a little bit horrifying for a parent. 93% of the time you spend with your children one-on-one in the same room will be before the age of 18. 93% of the time you spend with your kids will be before they're 18 years old. And then after that, for the rest of their lives and your life, that's only 7%.
Well, that's unless they're a millennial. They stay home. You got Gen Z, that.
They're not living in the basement after 18.
Well, and what I thought was neat was there was a Trump rally and you brought your son to it. I remember bringing him. You brought him because you wanted him to see, what democracy at work looks like. So I thought that was really great that you were kind of modeling for him what you do. And
I take him out door knocking with me too.
Oh, do you? Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, they don't like that so much. Especially when it's hot. They go, no, we're going to meet some wonderful people, and it's important to see. They'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And I think that'll help mold them in the future. One of the reasons why I think I ran for office to begin with, never mind Congress, but even just city council, was Silvio Conte, the last Republican member of Congress from Massachusetts, knocked on our door. He didn't need to. He was politically invulnerable by that point, but he just enjoyed doing it. And I thought that was I grew up in a house that cost $13,000.
Yeah.
Recently sold for $75,000.
Yeah.
So to have the member of Congress come to your door, because my parents were religious voters, they never missed. And I saw the interaction with the congressman, who I thought was essentially the president, talking to my father. My dad really left an impression.
Yeah, it is. And, it is great to have you in studio. I appreciate you taking time to talk to Rockwall, to people of Rockwall through this vehicle, and just being willing to answer some tough questions. You're invited back anytime. I also want to say a big thank you to your district director, Virginia, and your press secretary, Hannah, for setting all this up. Great crew you have working for you.
You know what? Virginia doesn't want to take credit for things, but there was in Rockwall last week, they were short 50 doses of the antibody for COVID, which is a very effective treatment. In fact, it saved my life.
Wow.
And we were notified on Friday or was it Thursday night? It was for Friday, that there were going to be 50 people that came in to the clinic and they weren't going to get their dosage.
Wow.
Which really honestly means that there could have been 2 or 3 people that would lose their lives.
Wow.
Out of 50, God forbid, if
you
get those doses. And the feds are mucking it up, as Biden has so enjoyed it doing. Long story short, she worked tirelessly. We made phone calls. A friend, Chris Hill, the county judge in Collin County, because we represent some of Collin County, helped out with, what was the hospital, the Baylor? Yeah, Baylor Scott and White came through with 50 doses, and we got them to the folks. So the 80 people that day, because they had 30 doses already.
Awesome.
Don't have any idea that almost 50 of them didn't get this.
Wow.
So she literally saved lives.
Yeah.
And that's really the greatest calling that we have, is we got to keep people safe, because if you're not safe, you're not free. And in those kind of instances where we can really change maybe the trajectory of someone's life, that's the honor.
Absolutely. Well, you've got a great crew. Thank you for being here today. And I just want to remind everyone that this is important to understand that you have the ability to make a difference, and keep Congressman Fallon in your thoughts and prayers. Don't forget what Thomas Jefferson said, that when the people fear government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. We will see you next time. Blessings.
Amen.